I am submitting this testimony under the strictest clearance protocols. Everything herein is true to my memory, though memory itself now feels unreliable, stretched over angles I cannot quantify. We were deployed at 0230 hours. The night was overcast, suffocating. The wind carried sand and something else's subtle metallic temps that lingered on the tongue and lungs. Our convoy moved silently along Rudol Matter, NVG night vision goggles, greenwash illuminating cracked asphalt. Radios maintained frequency 7.123, checked twice before departure. Oxygen masks were unnecessary, but humidity was unusually dense. Breath tasted like iron and static. Command briefed us only in fragments. High-priority reconnaissance in a sector labeled Restricted Alpha 6. No civilian movement reported. No insurgent chatter on the comms. Standard patrol rational, normal. Yet before insertion, I noted small anomalies. GPS readings jittered, coordinates shifting by tens of meters per second. The satellite feed lagged inexplicably. I reported it. Nothing came of it. Our team moved as one, boots muffled against rubble. Each shadow seemed to stretch further than physics allowed. Alleyways curved where no street existed on maps. I recorded this in my log. The others laughed quietly. Tension can manifest as humor, I reminded myself. For context, we were 5. Myself, the commander, Yona medic, Amir, demolitions expert, Rena, communications specialist, and Lev, veteran leader. Each checked their gear. NVG battery voltage 3, 7V, comes frequency stable. Tactical lights functional. The hum of our equipment was steady, almost soothing, but then it warped. Subtle and intermittent, a high-pitched resonance that felt alive, crawling along nerves. As we entered the first alley, a faint glow flickered across the walls, like phosphorescent symbols etched into stone. I blinked. It vanished. The air thickened, compressing around chest and skull. Lev whispered, "Keep moving." His voice was calm, but it vibrated against my perception, echoing from points that didn't exist. I remember thinking, rational men, military discipline, should notice nothing unusual. Yet the air shifted around us, as though the city itself exhaled. Our flashlights wavered. Shadows flickered against corners not in our line of sight. And then the sound began. Faint chanting, underneath the hum of machinery, but not human. Not Hebrew, not Arabic. Something else. I do not know if what followed was real, or the result of exhaustion, or something deliberately. Waiting. What I do know. The night was patient. And so, I write this testimony, because what we encountered cannot be fully reconciled with what the IDF or any record acknowledges. Operation Alpha 6 was classified as reconnaissance with secondary objectives of intelligence acquisition and site assessment. The area of Operation Sector 34.72-1N, 31.6014E has been historically volatile. Unreports noted intermittent underground tunnel activity, weapon smuggling, and unregistered civilian structures. Our mission was to chart the sector, locate anomalies in infrastructure, and confirm any unauthorized technological presence. Nothing in official documentation hinted at what awaited us. Command stressed strict engagement rules. No civilian contact unless hostile. Photographic evidence mandatory. Comes with HQ maintained at all times. The patrol team carried standard IDF reconnaissance loadouts. IWI Tavur X95 rifles, sidearms, combat knives, full tactical vests with comms integration, and portable signal jammers. NVG systems were calibrated to infrared and thermal frequencies. Each unit had portable oxygen sensors and environmental gauges. Officially, the mission stakes were high, but conventional. Unreported tunnels, potential militant activity, and classified surveillance equipment required precision and discipline. Unofficially, the team knew anomalies were possible. Previous patrols returned with incomplete reports, missing log entries, and fragmented video evidence often dismissed as technical failures. I noted in my private log that something about the sector defied standard operational parameters. GPS coordinates sometimes contradicted known maps. Comms occasionally picked up faint tonal interference resembling voice patterns, yet with no detectable source. Sandstorms shifted unnaturally, shadows lingered where there should have been none. The mission required absolute control, yet the environment subtly suggested otherwise. every tactical decision movement through alleyways, ladder inspections. Tunnel entry carried not just the risk of enemy contact, but the sense that something was observing, calculating, and waiting. By the time we were fully briefed and deployed, the tension was not merely operational, it was existential. As commander, I recorded every anomaly, but each report would later be sanitized, rewritten, or deleted. What I feared was not a militant ambush, it was what lay beyond our capacity to measure, quantify, or combat. Team introductions. Our patrol consisted of 5 operatives, each selected for expertise, reliability, and prior field experience. At first glance, we appeared balanced, rational, disciplined, and predictable, yet under the glow of NVGs and the metallic taste of the air, cracks in perception began to surface. LT. David Ben-Ami, Commander myself. Age 34. IDF Recon Unit 3. Background: Armored Reconnaissance. Counterterrorism. Trained to process situational anomalies, maintain control, and make rapid operational decisions under pressure. My personal habit: checking every oxygen sensor twice before movement would become a ritual that failed to anchor reality. Yona Halabi Medic, 29 years old. .com/methodical, scientific. His pack carried standard medical supplies, trauma kits, portable defibrillator, and a field microscope. Always precise in vitals check, yet I noticed him occasionally murmuring under breath during insertion. Eyes fixed on points outside the visible spectrum. Later, his notes would become unreadable scribbles, resembling a language older than Hebrew. Amir Levy, demolitions expert, 31, with a background in urban ordnance and subterranean demolition. It's reckless at times, yet technically flawless. His hands were steady, tools precise. Even as anomalies increased, he insisted on handling charges manually, adjusting timing sequences to exact microseconds. I remember him staring at a corridor wall, whispering about shapes beneath the stone. Rena Malachi, communications specialist, 27. Analytical.com under stress, exceptional in signal decoding and intercept. During comms checks, she occasionally paused, listening to what I could not hear, tones resembling human syllables, but distorted, layered. Equipment occasionally displayed faint glyphs on her monitors, disappearing when observed directly. Lev Barak, veteran leader, 42, brave, steady, grounded. Former infantry commander with decades in Gaza and Sinai sectors, tasked with maintaining unit cohesion during extended operations. Despite his confidence, he was first to note wrong shadows and subtle distortions in space. Often muttered, "It doesn't belong to this world," though never louder than a whisper. All 5 of us were outfitted with standard recon gear. IWI Tavers, NVG systems, tactical vests with body cams, CUM units, environmental sensors. Standard weight, 28 to 32 kilograms each, including hydration and rations. Each soldier trained in subterranean movement, tunnel breaching, and silent signaling. Despite our experience, an intangible unease threaded through the team. Shadows seemed to cling longer to Left's back. Light flickered around Amir's hands. Rena's monitors occasionally displayed faint, unreadable glyphs, synchronized with her heartbeat. Yona sometimes looked past me, focusing on a corridor that wasn't there. I tried to chalk it up to tension, operational stress, the suffocating Gaza night, but each anomaly was precise, controlled, intentional. I logged their personal quirks, skills, and minor habits later. These records would become crucial in identifying how each would be altered by what we encountered. Even then, I sensed that these men and women, while human, were on the precipice of experiencing forces far beyond comprehension. The briefing room at Forward Operating Base Shaked was dimly lit, the faint hum of fluorescent lights masking the occasional buzz of failing electronics. Map coordinates projected on the wall, Sector 34.72 to 1N, 31.6014E. The display flickered intermittently, as though resisting observation. Commands spoke in clipped sentences, standard procedure layered with incomplete fragments. Reconnaissance Alpha 6. I noted the absence of any discussion about prior patrol reports, which had included inexplicable GPS shifts, anomalous sound patterns, and partially erased logs. All previous missions were treated as routine, anomalies dismissed as technical error. I sensed a deliberate suppression of information, a directive embedded in protocol. See, but do not question. Each team member conducted pre-deployment checks. NVG battery voltages, 3.7 volts, fully charged. Comes frequency set to 7.123 with redundant encryption. Oxygen sensors calibrated, ammunition accounted for. Each step logged, each sequence verified. Repetition should have comforted us. Instead, it heightened awareness, magnifying every shadow and irregularity in the room. Deployment was via armored Humvee convoy, silent on streets where urban decay merged with the desert. Route cleared using real-time satellite feed, though the signal occasionally displayed a lag, as if the city itself was slipping through time. Rena monitored communications, occasionally pausing to listen to frequencies that returned only static hit. She insisted she heard patterns, faint voices, almost like chanting. The convoy entered the operational zone at 0230 hours. GPS anomalies continued, coordinates jittering against maps by dozens of meters per second. I made a note, check satellite calibration post-mission. Coordinates may be untrustworthy. As we approached insertion point Alpha, the environment shifted perceptibly. Light behaved unusually. Flickering lamps cast shadows too long. Corners seemed to curve inward. Lev muttered under his breath, "This sector's been rewritten." Deployment sequence executed. Humvee stopped at designated alleyway. NVGs activated weapons at ready. Communication protocol confirmed with HQ. Each soldier assumed silent formation. Standard approach, yet the city itself seemed to resist observation, corridors twisting, walls whispering. Even in preparation, I sensed an undercurrent of something patient, deliberate, waiting. The mission was framed as routine reconnaissance, but the air around us carried a weight beyond human perception. The operational objective remained clear: observe, record, returned, but the environment suggested another. Unseen agenda, one that would soon make our discipline insufficient. The convoy left the alleyway at 02 for 5 hours. Route Alpha 6 was narrow, framed by collapsed buildings and rubble. Humvee engines hummed a steady, metallic thrum yet. Even that familiar noise seemed to warp, vibrating against chest bones, creating a resonance that did not exist in normal acoustics. Each soldier assumed silent formation, Yona directly behind me, checking vitals with discreet glances. Mir on the flank, fingers brushing over demolition charges, eyes scanning alley corners. Rena slightly to the rear, headset live, listening to frequencies beyond standard bandwidths. Lev moving methodically, every step measured, weight distributed evenly. The NVGs cast everything in green monochrome, yet shadows seemed to resist the filter. A pile of debris stretched longer than physically possible, bending around the corner of a wall. Noted it, then dismissed as optical distortion. GPS coordinates continued to jitter. Satellite feed lagged, sometimes displaying our own position several meters ahead or behind the convoy. Rena muttered, "It's like the city doesn't want to be mapped." At 0255 hours, we reached the first underground entrance, a collapsed tunnel marked on older maps as T1. Amir checked the structural integrity, tapping supports with a small hammer. Each impact echoed differently than expected, resonating as though from another dimension. The sound lingered too long, layering over itself, forming a tone that resembled distant chanting. Yona ran a quick air quality scan. Readings normal, yet the metallic taste persisted in every breath. Humidity high, oxygen stable, yet pressure feels wrong, he whispered. We proceeded along the street network, avoiding known checkpoints. At one intersection, Lev froze, hand raised. A figure or a shadow resembling one shifted in an alleyway, humanoid but elongated, flickering at the edge of perception. Keep moving, I instructed, but the sensation lingered, an oppressive weight pressing at the back of my skull. I swore it shifted while I blinked, glyphs stretching impossibly across the surface, glowing faintly before vanishing. Rena's headset picked up a low-frequency resonance, repeating patterns that mimicked human speech, but in no language we recognized. We maintained radio silence except for essential comms. Every footstep sounded amplified. Each NVG beep resonated as though in a cavern larger than the city. Time itself seemed to stretch. A 5-minute walk felt like 30, yet chronometer confirmed passage of minutes as normal. At 0315 hours, the convoy reached the outer perimeter of the operational objective, an abandoned apartment complex, partially demolished, its interiors black voids under the NVG lens. Shadows pooled in corners, walls warped, metallic temps intensified, pressing against lungs. Every soldier moved with heightened awareness, each muscle primed. Yet there was no immediate threat, only the patient observation of an environment alive in ways our training could not predict. I recorded in my log, "Insertion complete." The team prepared for entry, unaware that what awaited within would exceed training, weaponry, or human understanding. The building loomed before us at 0318 hours. The air was thick, metallic, almost viscous, clinging to skin and lungs. First step inside, and the world shifted. The air pressure dropped subtly, unnoticed by instruments but felt as a gentle squeeze around the chest. Footsteps echoed strangely. Amir's tapping sounded twice, then 3 times, as if reverberating from corridors that should not exist. Shadows extended across walls at impossible angles, corners folding inward where no structural deformation occurred. Yona swept the initial hallway with a handheld scanner. Readings: normal oxygen, minimal particulate matter. He murmured, "It's calibrating against something else." I did not respond, focusing on tactical sweep, but noted the tremor in his hand. Rena monitored communications, headset static crackling. At intervals, the static resolved into soft syllables, voices whispering names none of us recognized. She paused, whispering back there. Waiting. We advanced deeper. The corridors narrowed, walls warped subtly, paint peeled in patterns resembling glyphs, yet when viewed directly, they disappeared. Light sources flickered unpredictably. Flashlights stuttered, NVG overlay distorted, mapping corridors in grids that defied geometry. Left's voice, calm and steady, instructed, maintain formation. Out. Do not respond to anomalies. Amir knelt by a doorway, inspecting structural integrity. He traced the outlines of cracks that shifted as he watched, elongating and shortening. We reached a central chamber barely 3 meters wide, walls darkened with soot and age. Its instruments went haywire, magnetic readings fluctuated, NVG overlay scrambled, comms displayed distorted loops of our own voices. Yona adjusted his mask. Metallic taste intensified. I felt the pressure in my chest increase, heartbeat resonating with corridors themselves. Then the temperature dropped. Not gradual, abrupt. Breath fogged instantly. Even though the scanner confirmed 22 degrees Celsius, a faint hum filled the chamber. Low frequency, vibrating against bones. Shadows converged toward the center, not cast by any discernible light source. For a moment I glimpsed figures, humanoid, elongated, translucent, then blinked, and they were gone. Rena's headset cracked, emitting a harmonic sequence. It mimicked breathing hours, and something else layered beneath. She whispered, "I can hear it." Names, counting, waiting. Her eyes glazed, focusing beyond our formation. I motioned forward, leading the team into the next corridor. Walls pulsed slightly, as if alive. Footsteps no longer registered their usual cadence. Echoes returned before the impact. Time felt dislocated. A second stretched unnaturally, then snapped. Each step carried an underlying vibration, resonating with an intelligence we could not comprehend. We paused at a junction. Map coordinates had ceased updating. Instruments could not locate walls or rooms accurately. It was as though the building itself had become a labyrinth outside reality. I logged everything: anomalies, equipment failures, shadows, whispers. Rationality demanded explanation, yet each observation contradicted prior experience. Something beyond our instruments, beyond human perception, was observing, waiting, shaping the environment around us. We were inside. The mission objective remained: assess and extract. But already every step forward felt like intrusion into something patient, indifferent, and ancient. We advanced cautiously, maintaining tactical spacing. NVG overlay confirmed corridor lengths, room layouts. And exits, though intermittently distorted corridors, appeared to elongate and contract as we moved. I recorded every measurement, aware that each anomaly might later be dismissed as equipment error. It felt the weight of something unseen manipulating our perception. Yona took point during environmental scans. Air composition: stable, temperature, uniform. Yet the metallic temps persisted, thickening near walls. He whispered observations into his recorder, humidity slightly elevated near alcoves. Structural resonance anomalous, no detectable threat. Team status nominal. His tone remained calm, but I noticed subtle tremors in his hands as he traced each hallway. Amir inspected the perimeter for hazards, collapsed beams, unstable floors, potential trap points. The usual clink of metal against stone echoed irregularly, as though the chamber itself absorbed and replayed sound at altered intervals. Shadows seemed to retreat when directly observed, only to pool elsewhere. I caught glimpses of them in peripheral vision, elongated shapes, indistinct, yet humanoid in proportion. Rena monitored comms and attempted equipment recalibration. The headset captured low-frequency signals below audible range, registering harmonic patterns resembling language but not matching any known code. She paused, listening intently. "I'm picking up sequences, almost like counting or naming," she said quietly. "Nothing physical, something cognitive." Lev moved along the inner perimeter, methodically documenting spatial anomalies. He noted subtle curvature of walls, floors slightly slanted without structural explanation. "Keep mapping," I instructed. Yet even I noted that the geometric inconsistencies defied logic. The team moved as a unit, disciplined, professional, but perceptual cracks were forming. We cleared the first two chambers. Evidence collection was routine. Cameras and scanners operational, environmental logs precise. Yet a sensation permeated the space, a faint hum beneath all equipment. Low-frequency vibration that could not be traced to machinery. It resonated in the chest, subtle enough to dismiss consciously, yet impossible to ignore. By 0345 hours, initial exploration suggested no conventional threat. Tunnels were empty, no insurgent presence, no wildlife. Yet the environment resisted comprehension. Shadows moved against the direction of light. Walls flexed slightly, NVG readings jittered. Each team member reacted differently. Iona meticulous, Amir distracted, Rena listening, Lev cautious. I noted the formation remained tight, but tension was visible in micro-expressions. Shoulders stiffened, fingers brushing triggers unconsciously. I logged mission proceeding under standard reconnaissance protocol, environmental anomalies increasing in subtle frequency. Team remains operationally effective, yet perceptual inconsistencies may affect judgment. All equipment functional, human factors primary concern. It was routine reconnaissance, but the subtle manipulations of space, sound, and perception hinted at a reality already bending. The patient observation of something ancient and indifferent was beginning, and we were unknowingly the subject. At 0352 hours, the first anomaly occurred. It was subtly dismissed by a disciplined operator, but undeniable once observed. Amir tapped a section of floor near a junction. The clink of metal echoed slightly too long, then repeated in a delayed counterpoint, as if the room itself responded to the sound. Iona's handheld sensor briefly spiked. "Airflow displacement," he said, scanning again. "Nothing registered. Oxygen, particulate matter, temperature all normal." Yet the metallic temps had thickened in the hallways, lingering on the tongue and lungs. Rena's headset crackled. Low-frequency interference again. This time, it resolved into faint syllables. Not human, not Arabic, not Hebrew. A single phrase repeated, almost melodic. "Herail, rail." Her eyes widened. "Speaking our names," she whispered. I checked the comms log. Nothing. No source detected. Lev paused mid-step, hand on the wall. Shadows near the corridor bends seemed to fold toward him, stretching unnaturally. "Feels watched," he murmured. He continued forward, but the team's pace slowed instinctively. I noted a visual irregularity on my NVG overlay, a faint shimmer along the walls. Like heat waves, but color temperature readings were stable. The corridor had no heat source. The distortion moved as if the walls themselves breathed. Amir, ever the skeptic, crouched to examine the floor. Footprints, hours, and nothing else interrupted the concrete dust. Yet beside his prints, faint indentations appeared and vanished almost immediately, as if the surface rejected them. "These weren't here a second ago," he muttered. The team remained operationally silent, each aware of the subtle cues. Shadows resisting observation, repeated echoes, whispers on the comms that were not recorded by any device. The patient, Unseen presence made itself known without aggression, like a predator assessing prey rather than striking. I logged. Minor disturbances noted. No physical threat detected. Environmental and perceptual anomalies increasing in intensity. Recommend heightened situational awareness. Team cohesion intact. Psychological effect minimal. Even so, an undercurrent of dread rippled through the unit. Rationality argued these were malfunctions, optical illusions, equipment glitches, fatigue, but instinct screamed otherwise. The environment was responding, observing, calculating. The mission had shifted imperceptibly. Reconnaissance was no longer the objective survival. Perception and comprehension were now at stake. By 0359 hours, the anomalies had multiplied. Shadows no longer adhered to their sources. Each corner seemed to fold inward, producing shapes our eyes could not resolve. A flicker of movement too swift, too fluid passed along the walls, vanishing when directly observed. Amir paused at the corridor intersection, pointing to footprints alongside ours. They were human in proportion, yet distorted, elongated, perfectly symmetrical, unlike any boot tread we carried. I crouched to examine them. No dust had shifted, no impressions formed in the cement. Still, they existed. Yona's environmental scanner began registering spikes in low-frequency vibrations. "This isn't air or pressure," he muttered, voice tight. "It's resonance." Each pulse pressed against the chest, vibrating the sternum. Untraceable by instruments, yet undeniable to our bodies. Rena's headset picked up layered tones, now sharper, forming patterns, a cadence resembling counting, but punctuated by whispering syllables. Occasionally, it resolved into names hours before devolving into static. She adjusted frequency filters, but the phenomenon persisted. Her calm, analytical demeanor faltered. She tilted her head, listening beyond our sensory limits. Lev moved forward, documenting each irregularity with precision. Walls warped subtly, doorways appearing shorter or taller, depending on viewing angle. NVG overlay flickered erratically. Corridors multiplied, shifted, overlapped. Ah! The building was no longer a static structure. It was a fluid environment resisting comprehension. The team formation remained tight, yet micro-expressions betrayed anxiety. Amir tapped the wall, and the metallic thrum returned, delayed, layered, almost conversational. Shadows reacted, extending along walls and ceilings, curling as if acknowledging the sound. I noted in my log, patterns emerging in environmental responses. Anomalies show adaptive behavior. Team cohesion intact, but perceptual strain evident. The metallic temps intensified, coating every breath. Yona scans remained nominal in readings, yet his face paled. The NVG overlay began displaying faint glyphs along walls, geometric, glowing, dimly vanishing when approached. I glimpsed them out of the corner of my eye. Each symbol lingered in the periphery before disappearing completely. At 0405 hours, the first real breach of perceived reality occurred. A shadow detached from the wall, stretching toward Rena's monitor. Not fully formed, yet humanoid in proportion, it recoiled when she turned her gaze directly. The flicker of presence was enough to make us hesitate. I logged. Escalation confirmed. Shadows manifest independently. Environmental response accelerated. Team remains functional, yet perception increasingly unreliable. Operational risk elevated beyond conventional parameters. Despite rational insistence on procedure, each step felt like intrusion into a space alive, patient and indifferent. We were no longer merely observers. The building had acknowledged us. It was waiting. At 0412 hours, the anomaly shifted from subtle to undeniable. We had entered a large chamber, roughly 10 meters square, walls blackened and warped, with faint glyphs glowing intermittently along the edges. NVG overlay flickered, failing to map corners correctly. Shadows pooled independently, stretching into impossible angles. The hum that had been beneath perception now resonated like a chord, vibrating against bones. Amir approached a wall to inspect structural integrity. The moment his gloved hand made contact, the glyphs brightened, pulsating in synchronization with the vibrations. The floor beneath his boots seemed to ripple, as if liquid. Eyes wide, whispering, it moved, it responded. Yona's scanner spiked violently. Oxygen readings and particulate counts remained normal, yet the device displayed nonsensical sequences, numbers folding upon themselves in fractal patterns. Metallic temps thickened in the air, tasting of copper and ozone. His breath came shallow, rapid. "This isn't atmospheric," he murmured. Rena's headset registered coherent signals now. It's not abstract syllables, but vocalizations, names, phrases, questions, almost conversational. Her voice faltered. "It wants to communicate, or learn from us," she said, eyes wide, fixed beyond the walls. Static layered over her tone, creating harmonics that resonated painfully in our chests. Then it appeared. A figure detached from the far wall, a humanoid, translucent, elongated, and imperfectly symmetrical. Its head tilted unnaturally, too many joints in the limbs, movement fluid yet disjointed. Shadows radiated from it, independent of light sources. The figure didn't walk. It flowed, hovering just above the floor. As our approximations of eyes glowed faintly, observing us without expression. Amir instinctively raised his weapon. The figure shifted in response, flickering like a disrupted projection. No sound came from it, yet the resonance of its presence pressed against our skulls. Yona fell to one knee, hand on chest, scanning rapidly. "It's not aggressive, not yet," he whispered. Lev, calm until now, stepped forward. His hand rested on the entity's space, as if measuring it. The shadows around him contracted, then elongated along the walls. He whispered, "It's aware of us. It knows our patterns, our presence, our fear." I tried to maintain command protocol. Keep formation. Eyes on target. Document everything. Do not engage. Yet rationality faltered. Time itself seemed elastic. Seconds stretched and snapped, corridors behind us folding impossibly. The entity extended a limb or something resembling one toward Rena. Her headset reacted violently, transmitting harmonic distortions that sounded like screaming and laughter simultaneously. The glyphs along the walls brightened in response, forming intricate constellations across surfaces. I recorded in my log, "Entity manifest. Independent intelligence. Environmental adaptation confirmed. No conventional weapons effective. Psychological strain extreme. Operational parameters exceeded. Evacuation may be required." For a moment we were frozen. The patient observation of something ancient and indifferent pressed down upon us. Weapons, scanners, communication all became secondary to perception itself. The room no longer adhered to physical law, it observed. We documented. We survived, but awareness had shifted irreversibly. By 0 for 18 hours, the entity's influence had intensified. Time stretched and contracted unpredictably. Single step felt like minutes, then seconds. The chamber itself seemed to pulse with awareness, corridors extending into voids that defied maps. NVG overlays collapsed repeatedly, displaying overlapping grids, some intersecting at impossible angles. Amir's movements grew erratic. His hands, once precise, now twitched involuntarily. Tools he carried twisted subtly in his grip, screws and wires bending like soft metal. He crouched over the floor, tracing glyphs with fingertips. The symbols responded, brightening, elongating, pulsating rhythmically. "It's alive," he whispered, voice distorted, almost unrecognizable. Shadows clung to him, stretching along walls and ceilings as though he carried his own darkness. Yona's calm scientific demeanor fractured. He examined the air, scanning repeatedly, but readings remained nominal. Yet he began speaking in tongues, muttering sequences that sounded like mathematical formulas intertwined with fragmented words. His vitals spiked irregularly. Faint resonance seemed to echo his heartbeat across the chamber. Metallic temps now burned in every breath. I tried to focus, but his gaze, once steady, now darted to impossible corners, following movement invisible to the rest of us. Rena's headset became a conduit. Harmonics, once faint, now surged into speech patterns that mimicked intelligence, layers of comprehension beyond human language. She tilted her head, her voice layered with static and melodic distortion. "It's communicating through me, not to me," she whispered. I realized the coms displayed signals none of us could process. Every syllable carried weight, pressing against perception. Lev, the veteran, remained outwardly composed, yet subtle changes betrayed him. Shadows twisted more violently around his feet, stretching like living extensions. Occasionally, The glyphs along walls mirrored his movements, forming constellations aligned with his body. He seemed to merge with the environment, memory flickering, expression vacant, yet focused. I felt the first direct assault on perception. Corridors behind us no longer existed. Those ahead warped into unrecognizable geometries. Steps echoed in reverse. NVG grids overlapped multiple timelines, displaying the same spaces simultaneously at different stages of decay. My own reflection in metallic surfaces briefly flickered, showing multiple versions of myself, some younger, some older, all aware and observing. The entity remained passive, yet omnipresent. Its presence pressed against cognition, warping spatial awareness. A low-frequency hum now penetrated the skulls of the entire team, synchronized with pulsing glyphs on walls and floor. Each vibration conveyed subtle messages, patterns we could not consciously decode, but understood viscerally. Observation, calculation, patience. Amir suddenly shrieked, his body contorted grotesquely, joints bending at impossible angles. No blood, no injury, yet the transformation was undeniable. His tools fell into the pulsing glyphs, which absorbed them silently. Yona's voice shifted. One moment scientific and coherent, the next layered with otherworldly echoes. Speaking of centuries and species, knowledge alien yet intimate. Rena convulsed subtly as the headset output grew overwhelming. Harmonics formed a lattice across her body, glyphs synchronizing to her pulse. Her voice, now partially static, partially melodic, began articulating concepts none of us could grasp. Temporal distortion, dimensional overlay, the patient observation of humanity. Left's eyes, once steady, flickered in unnatural rhythm. Shadows coiled around him, eventually detaching briefly and hovering as extensions of his presence. Memory gaps appeared when he spoke, phrases lost mid-sentence, recollections vanishing into voids. I remained rational, documenting everything, yet perception itself faltered. Time bent, floors folded, walls twisted, and the air thickened with anticipation. Each of us, skilled, disciplined, trained, was altered in unique ways. Military training was insufficient against an intelligence that manipulated reality. Perception and cognition simultaneously. The entity did not strike, it observed. It became its experiment, each anomaly a refinement of interaction. The chamber itself was now alive in every sense, breathing, pulsing, responding to thought, movement, and fear. Survival was contingent not on skill, but on endurance, awareness, and patience, under a presence older than comprehension. I logged the escalation. Operational risk exceeded. Team altered individually and collectively. Reality unstable. Entity passive, adaptive, intelligent. Psychological strain extreme. Mission objectives secondary to containment and observation. By 04 to 8 hours, we were no longer merely soldiers. We had become extensions of the environment, instruments for the entity's observation, each uniquely marked and altered. Rationality remained a veneer. Beneath it, the patient, indifferent presence, had begun rewriting perception, memory, and corporeal integrity. By 0:35 hours, the chamber had transformed entirely. Walls no longer adhered to known geometry, corridors folded in upon themselves, intersecting at angles impossible to measure. NVG overlays repeatedly glitched, projecting overlapping realities, multiple versions of the same room visible simultaneously. The metallic temps was thick, clinging to lungs and skin, saturating every breath. The entity manifested fully in the central chamber. It had grown in scale, shadows radiating like extensions of its body, moving independently. Limbs, or what approximated limbs, flowed across floors and walls, folding space without friction. Its eyes glowed faintly, observing, patient, ancient, indifferent. Amir's body contorted violently. No pain, no blood, yet each movement seemed preternatural. His hands twisted in impossible angles, tools warped as if obeying an unseen will. He muttered numbers and words, none human, then froze mid-step, absorbed into a pulsing glyph on the wall. Yona's voice fractured, alternating between familiar calmness and alien sequences. He gestured at empty corners, tracing invisible patterns, whispering knowledge beyond comprehension. Evolutionary cycles of species, cosmologies, timelines. He blinked, then faltered, unable to reconcile any present reality. Rena's headset erupted in harmonic overlay. Her body convulsed subtly as glyphs aligned with pulse and breath. She spoke through static, articulating concepts in multiple dimensions simultaneously, each phrase altering the perception of time in the room. Lev moved toward the entity, shadows coiling and detaching from his body like serpents. He attempted communication, gesture, vocalization. Touch but memory gaps appeared mid-action. He was partially present, partially elsewhere, becoming an extension of the environment itself. I remained at the perimeter, documenting. Reality fractured around me. Steps returned echoes before they were made. Walls rippled. Time stretched and compressed unpredictably. I fired a round weapon discharged normally, but trajectory warped mid-flight, disappearing into impossible space. The chamber registered our presence, yet no conventional defense applied. The entity hovered silently, observing. There was no aggression, only calculation and patience. Yet the intensity of its awareness forced the team to the edge of cognitive collapse. I logged the phenomena. Shadows independent of light. Environmental response correlated with thought, action, and fear. We attempted withdrawal. Corridors shifted, folding back upon themselves, looping endlessly. NVG readings displayed multiple outcomes simultaneously. We were trapped not by walls, but by perception itself. Then, a contact exchange occurred. The entity extended a limb-like projection toward me. Glyphs along walls brightened, harmonics synchronized with pulse. I felt an intrusion into memory, cognition, even my operational log, events rewritten mid-recording. The entity was indifferent, patiently overriding our understanding of reality, leaving survival to the mercy of endurance and adaptability. I logged final observations before extraction, breach complete. Entity's influence absolute. Team integrity compromised. Conventional engagement ineffective. Observation only. Reality and perception now primary vectors of survival. By 0445 hours, withdrawal commenced. The entity receded slightly, maintaining patient observation. The chamber returned to partial stability, corridors aligning just enough for movement, but the imprint of its presence remained. Shadows lingered, or vibrated with residual harmonics. Time continued to bend. We had survived the immediate encounter, but nothing within us saw the environment was untouched. The patient, indifferent force had made its observation, and we would carry the consequences forever. At 0450 hours, the order to withdraw was given. The corridors that had warped into impossible geometries now presented a tenuous path outward, one that shifted subtly with every step. NVG overlays provided inconsistent guidance, sometimes projecting walls meters away from their physical location. Each passageway appeared familiar and alien simultaneously, a labyrinth bending under unseen pressure. We moved as a unit, weapons raised, every sense heightened. Metallic temps of the air thickened further, coating our throats and lungs. Shadows clung to our heels, independent of any light source. The low-frequency hum persisted, resonating in our bones, synchronized with the pulsing glyphs that appeared and vanished along walls. Amir led briefly, hands trembling despite training. Every step he took warped the floor subtly, as though reality itself resisted movement. "Keep moving," I instructed, voice steady despite inner dread. His nod was mechanical, movements precise yet distorted. Yona monitored environmental sensors, which continued to report nominal readings, yet each inhalation felt denser, heavier, the air vibrating with unseen energy. He staggered slightly as if the chamber's pulse pressed against his chest. I placed a hand on his shoulder. His eyes momentarily met mine, vacant yet aware of something else entirely. Rena's headset erupted with harmonics, now layered with intelligible sequences. Her voice, partially human, partially alien, transmitted phrases describing spatial distortions, the folding of corridors, and a mapping of time itself that no human mind could process. The device displayed simultaneous timelines of our path, some overlapping, some contradicting. Lev moved with precision, yet shadows followed him in impossible ways, stretching, coiling, detaching briefly before merging again. I noted that each team member bore unique signatures of the environment's influence. Amir, physically altered. Yona perceptually fractured. Rena cognitively entangled. Lev partially merged with shadows. We reached the initial insertion point, yet time betrayed us. Clocks and chronometers indicated 20 minutes had passed since departure from the chamber. yet subjective perception suggested over 14 hours. The desert air outside tasted metallic, saturated with colors that did not belong to the spectrum. Sand shimmered with iridescent hues. Shadows fell in directions that contradicted logic. Extraction vehicles were in place, yet the weight of the environment persisted. Every shadow, every echo, every vibration suggested observation and intelligent patience. We climbed aboard the Humvee, instruments flickering. NVG overlays still displayed impossible corridors branching into voids. I recorded. Extraction initiated. Subjective time distortion confirmed. Environmental anomalies persist beyond immediate structure. Team cohesion intact, but altered individually. Reality remains unstable. Observation continues. Despite reaching the surface, a sense of unreality pervaded. The sun, low on the horizon, radiated in unnatural gradients. Shadows stretched and recoiled as if alive. Our mission objective was complete, but the true cost physical, cognitive, temporal remained unknown. The patient, indifferent presence had observed, and though we survived, the world we returned to was subtly, irreversibly altered. By 05:05 hours, the team had been extracted from the facility. Yet each member bore unmistakable alterations, subtle, profound, and permanent. The environment outside seemed normal, yet something in perception had shifted irreversibly. Amir was the most visibly changed. His right arm had vanished at the elbow cleanly, with no blood or trauma. He looked down at the limb absent from his body, expression vacant, eyes reflecting the chamber's glow that lingered within him. Movement remained unaffected. His body adapted instinctively, yet the absence was undeniable. Yona's voice had altered. When he spoke, consonants fractured into static and electronic tones, interspersed with recognizable language. His medical knowledge, once precise and methodical, now spanned centuries, species, and concepts beyond human comprehension, but scrambled. Incoherent in practical application. When asked to describe vital signs or chemical compositions, he responded with sequences that could only be interpreted as gibberish or alien calculus. Rena's cognitive alignment had shifted permanently. Her mind processed layered frequencies continuously, interpreting harmonics beyond human perception. Her speech oscillated between human and alien tonalities. Attempts to communicate normally caused fatigue, her voice sometimes producing glyph-like sounds. Instruments sometimes responded to her presence alone, displaying readings that defied physics. Lev the veteran retained outward composure, yet memory was fractured. He could recall strategy and procedural commands, but could not retrieve experiences prior to the mission coherently. Occasionally, he would pause mid-action, as if retrieving memory that no longer existed. Shadows seemed to cling to him, independent of light, as if he were partially merged with the environment itself. I, the commander, remained operationally intact in appearance, yet perception had been irreversibly altered. Shadows flickered beyond expected angles. Corridors continued to ripple in peripheral vision. Glyphs persisted in moments of darkness. Every chronometer, every reflection, every electronic device suggested observation of us, through us, and beyond us. We were all altered uniquely, yet collectively aware of the same external intelligence. The mission had been completed, yet the cost was unquantifiable. Alteration, physical, cognitive, perceptual, was irreversible. It's reversible. The environment and the entity within it had left indelible marks. We were survivors in name only. Human in form, but reshaped by forces beyond comprehension. The patient, indifferent presence had observed, and in doing so, had rewritten the very framework through which we interacted with reality. We carried the aftermath within our bodies, our minds, and our perceptions. By 06:00 hours, we were back at forward operating base shaked. Extraction had been unnervingly smooth. No complications, no hostile encounters. Officers greeted us with calm professionalism that bordered on inhuman. Their eyes, steady and unreadable, offered no acknowledgement of what we had endured. We were immediately escorted to a sterile debriefing room. White walls, clinical lighting, and a faint hum of unseen machinery. Our altered conditions, Mir's missing arm, Yona's fractured voice. Rena's cognitive entanglement were noted with detached efficiency. There was no shock, no curiosity, no empathy. The officers treated anomalies as procedural footnotes. Questions were asked systematically. Mission success, route taken, environmental conditions, enemy presence. Every attempt to describe shadows, glyphs, harmonic distortions, or time dilation was met with sterile repetition. All readings nominal, reports standardized. Focus on operational outcomes. When I tried to elaborate, words twisted in my mind, phrases slipping into contradictions. My testimony became unintelligible, even to myself. Official records had already been rewritten. Logs we had meticulously maintained now reflected sanitized versions, corridors intact, environmental readings nominal, mission accomplished within expected time frame. All anomalies were erased. Equipment failures and perceptual distortions were removed from reports. Our altered states were noted clinically, then filed under non-existent archives. Amir was reassigned to maintenance tasks within a remote facility, his missing arm noted as a minor incident. Yona was moved to research protocols, voice altered, notes classified. Rena was instructed to monitor communications for anomalies. Her new ability is essential yet unacknowledged. Left's memory was partially suppressed, returned to tactical training unaware of prior experience. I was left to document this testimony in private, aware that official channels would not accept it. My own recollection became fragmented. Describing the entity or the chamber's anomalies risked immediate classification and erasure. Even attempting to warn superiors produced internal conflict, my words rearranged in memory, twisted into procedural compliance. Every sensation persisted, however the metallic temps in the air. Shadows flickering at impossible angles, glyphs pulsing faintly in peripheral vision. We existed in a world rendered normal by bureaucracy, but altered irreversibly by forces outside comprehension. I logged a final note in the debrief file. Mission declassified for personnel. Anomalous events suppressed. Reality as observed, altered. Team conditions normalized in reports. Objective achieved. True operational variables, inaccessible. Observation ongoing. Survivors, altered. Entity, indifferent. The debrief concluded with clinical efficiency. Officers exited, leaving silence thick and oppressive. It was clear, the suppression of truth was absolute. Our experiences were irrelevant to the narrative maintained by command. Humanity's understanding of the event would never extend beyond the sanitized official account. We were free yet constrained. Oliviette, irrevocably altered. Witnesses to a reality that could not be acknowledged. Our only record the testimony written in shadow and memory, impermanent and untrusted. I sit in my quarters, late evening. The room appears ordinary. Books, a desk, a muted lamp, but nothing is as it seems. Shadows shift independently, sometimes extending limbs where none exist. My reflection in the window lingers too long, blinking out of sync with my own movements. Every surface hums faintly, a resonance that echoes the harmonic patterns from the chamber. The laptop screen glows with open files I do not recall creating. Containment logs, anomaly reports, countdowns. Symbols flash intermittently across the interface, glyphs not encoded in any known system. I reach to close the program only for the glyphs to continue, crawling along the desktop like living ink. I hear footsteps in the hallway, outside, heavy, deliberate. They are too weighty for human stride. Pausing, I strain to listen. The sounds synchronize with my heartbeat. When I turn, the corridor is empty, yet shadows curl against the walls in impossible angles, suggesting someone or something follows. The metallic temps lingers in the room, subtle but insistent. I breathe slowly, but it saturates every inhalation, thickening in the throat. My wristwatch spins erratically, minutes accelerating, then stalling, as if time itself resists observation. I glance at a book on the shelf. Its pages ripple, glyphs forming and vanishing, recounting histories that never existed, yet feel intimately familiar. The air vibrates with layered frequencies, voices speaking in tongues I cannot decode, harmonics blending with my own thoughts. Even in solitude, the environment observes. The lamp flickers, projecting symbols across the ceiling. Shadows extend tentatively into my space, retreating only when directly confronted. A sense of patient awareness pervades. It does not seek to harm, yet exerts control over perception, cognition, and memory. I attempt to write this testimony. Words fail, rearranging themselves into procedural banalities. Descriptions of the entity, the chamber, the anomalies twist into sanitized abstractions. Yet the experience persists in perception, embedded within nerves and bones, impossible to erase. And I understand. It waits, patient, indifferent, eternal. Damn, it does not need to destroy us. It can observe while we finish the work ourselves. Our reality, our memory, even our sense of agency, are secondary to its presence. The world continues outside these walls, unaware. Yet every shadow, every flicker of light, every anomaly carries the silent signature of its observation. I close my notebook. The room exhales. Shadows linger. The hum continues. And I know no one truly leaves the encounter untouched. The entity is patient. It does not need to destroy us. It can wait for us to finish destroying ourselves.